Thank you, Craig. I'd also like to take a moment to introduce Danny
Commody.
Commody, yes, sorry. Danny Commody with Washington State Transportation Utility. Danny and I met about 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. Hudson Hollister was the catalyst to bring us together. We wanted to work together for a couple of reasons. One, we felt that Danny had a vision to move the commission from collecting documents to collecting structured data, and that Donnelly had an infrastructure and team that was field proven that could help Danny meet that vision. So about 4 months ago or so, we started down that path together, and we're here today to present the findings of our pilot, which really the beginnings of the model to move the UTC from collecting documents to collecting data. Also, for those of you that are interested, we have 2 white papers you can pick up from a Donnelly rep in the room. One of them is an interview with Danny about the process of taking documents to data and the importance of creating a process around that. And the second one is an interview with Roy Warden, who is the filing operations lead of the HMRC in the UK, who also developed a very structured program to move from collecting tax documents in paper formats to digital format. So these are both very helpful for you as you become familiar with that. Danny, can you talk to us a little bit about the companies that you regulate today and the process for looking at those documents?
Sure. We're for Washington State, we're the state regulator for investor-owned utilities. If you look at the listing of what we actually regulate, we regulate electric companies, natural gas, oil pipeline, telephone companies, water companies, solid waste companies, and even passenger ferries, and there's a couple other things, railroads and stuff we regulate. So it's a broad collection of entities that we regulate, all of which we have economic regulation, meaning that we actually set their rates or review their rates, and so we rely heavily on the data in which they provide us. And of course, all of the reports that we receive from them are usually PDF in form, sometimes in a ad hoc type Excel program. So we're taking a lot of time reviewing that.
In the entities that you identified for the pilot, can you explain why this group is the focus of that pilot?
The main reason these 2 or these 3, they're high profile. They affect a lot of people. If something happens to any of these companies, they're definitely in the newspaper. Also, when we have any type of procedure related to them, a rate case, investigation, we have a lot of stakeholders that intervene and come involved in it. Some of the other companies kind of work in a void, and we do a lot of stuff and nobody notices. With the electric or gas company, you will have environmental groups, you'll have low-income groups, you'll have consumer advocates, all being involved. Also, what's important on this and why we picked it is the companies also file not just with the Utility Commission, but they also file with the SEC, and they file with the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Now, what's interesting about that is when the company files, they file with the SEC under US GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. When they file with the FERC, they file under regulatory accounting. It's a different kind of accounting, similar, adopts a lot of the GAAP methodology, but it's a standalone method, and that's why we wanted to focus on that accounting in this project.
So you can move from that structure in that accounting reporting language into the structure of, in this case, XBRL as the standard for the exchange of the information, and really apply the business rules that are inherent in the accounting language into the structure of the XBRL.
Right. Yeah, and recognizing the generally accepted accounting principle actually has a corpus of rules in which it is guided by. Regulatory accounting is the same way. The FERC produces a regulatory accounting uniform system of accounts, and that's what we would be embedding in this taxonomy.
So as you go from collecting documents to data, tell us a little bit about the challenges that you see today in using the PDFs that you're collecting from these agencies.
Yeah, the one, and I think this is really, really common. The biggest challenge is these reports, and you can see them here. This is a good example. We got an electric report there. We have oil, and we have natural gas reports. Those are all filed with the FERC, and we also, the Washington Commission has them filed with us. The big challenge that we hit constantly is these are PDFs, or they're hard copies. And so for our analysts that are highly educated, skilled analysts, to do any work with these reports, they will spend a third of their time transcribing it to an Excel spreadsheet, validating it, and probably re-entering it once again, just to do the basic analysis. I think that's one of the biggest challenges right there.
And what about the quality of the data as you collect it?
That's it. The data as we go through it is taken on its face as being valid, but really there's been no tests. They're only later, maybe when the analysis is done or partially complete and numbers are not connecting, and I've done this myself where I end up with a result and I realize the result in the report is different. Now the question is which one's different? So from the start you don't know if it's validated or valid information.
So talk a little bit about the data in the financial files. So it includes your operating data, financial data. Can you talk a little bit about that data set?
Yeah, the reports, which are thick, with the electric companies themselves, they range from 260 pages to 520 pages, this last filing. There's a lot of pages there, and as a sidebar, it's not intuitive. As you flip through it, you might actually have page numbers change in the middle and then pick up again later. But within this corpus of information, you have financial information, lots of financials, which are based on that uniform system of accounts, which, as a sidebar, is a plus for what we're doing. The titles are the same throughout the country. The account names, the account numbers are the same. But we also have operating data. We have operating data like generation mix. What kind of generation do you have? Do you have gas turbines? Do you have coal? Do you have nuclear? What do you have? And then what's the fuel usage? What's the megawatt hours that are produced? What's the megawatt hours that are sold? That type of information is filled in that report. And once again, for an engineer or analyst to pull that information out to detect trending, they might have to pull, and I just saw this about a couple of months ago. The analyst had 5 reports on his desk, and he was pulling separate information from each report to see what kind of trend it was. Very time-consuming on that.
Thank you. So part of the goal here is to get the quality of the data to improve and minimize the time an analyst needs to check that data before they can actually start going in there and doing their research.
And I think another challenge, and it's the last part, the report itself is total company. Well, total company can have different segments, so it also reports different segments. And then because it's a Washington report, we also have them file a Washington report based on allocated methods that the Washington Commission has approved. So I guess the point is these are very complex, but rich with data.
Thank you. So we've heard a little bit about what Danny's doing at UTC, and what Donnelly brings to the table is field-proven expertise in a global scale, producing, creating, and distributing documents to clients on the regulatory side as well as on the company side. So we've worked with companies like FDIC here in the U.S. Over 10 years ago now to create the validation platform that allows them to collect the information on their call reports and then seamlessly go into running rules ratios and metrics against that data to start doing the analytics that Danny's talking about here. We also developed a similar process with the Bank of France where they're collecting very large files and they're collecting this information just like the FDIC, and in that process they're validating that information. And that's been the challenge from what we've heard here today is you can get the data, but you want to make sure that the data that you're collecting is complete, consistent, accurate, and correct. And so what we do here with our partners globally is allow the business registers to work as the domain experts, and this is our domain expert in the FERC reporting, with the industry technical experts, and some of them are in the audience here, to collaborate on the creation of a taxonomy for the regulator to move into that data collection process. And so that's exactly what we're talking about here. The UTC reporting system on the R. Donnelley Data Cloud has taken that field-proven model and allowed Danny to create a template for the FERC report to collect over 600 elements in that FERC financial document and run them against about 2,000 calculations in the XBRL formula rules to make sure that the data that's coming in on these templates goes through a very rigorous validation process. So Danny, you want to talk a little bit about the template?
Yeah, the way that we're envisioning this is the Commission will create a template for the companies, which will be the annual report, and we've already done it to a large extent with the pilot. And so we've taken individual pages of the FERC report, mapped it out, set metadata associated with it, sent it to the experts. They were able to convert that data usually within a day. By the end of the day, I would have a message back that said I probably had an error. There would be some type of number change, or maybe my titles would be mismatched, which was great feedback to me. I kiddily said that I did that intentionally to test them, but it was actually a good highlight of what the process does. So with a valid template of the annual report, I would envision that the companies will actually download this report. And it's in Excel format. It's a standard format. They would go ahead, fill in the report at that time using whatever methodology they want. Now, I want to make an interesting observation. In the companies I've talked to about how they fill out the FERC report, remembering the FERC report is this PDF report, and it's been around for decades. The company uses their SAP, or they use their Great Plains software to produce a data dump. And then they literally type it onto their, using a word processor, or I think in the old days, literally a typewriter, to put it into the report. So instead of doing that, I would envision they would actually use their software to produce an Excel report that would produce this information. At that point, they're ready to upload into the cloud. Now, what happens with this, and this is one of the things we had talked about originally, is we want minimal disruption to the companies. We don't want the companies to fill this at all. They're not getting programmers. They're not putting a program on their machines. They are using Excel as a platform, using our template that's been mapped to go up to the UTC cloud.
So in that process, the regulated oil or gas entity pipeline downloads that report. They don't see the XBRL.
Correct.
They fill in the data. They upload the report. Upon upload, the report goes through a validation check for completeness, consistency, accuracy, and correctness. If there's an error in that report, it's flagged in that Excel file. in on your error page, you can go directly to the line item in that 600 element report to see what's wrong with the data. At that point, you would correct the data at the point of entry, re-upload that file until you have a file which is 100% accurate. Then, and only then, is that data available in the XBRL database to be reviewed by Danny's team, which gives them comfort that they know the information has been validated and their data analytics is built off of a complete data set. Danny, you want to talk a little bit about the data analytics model?
What we did, same type of scenario, but on the other side. And I've talked to some of our analysts, and they're excited about this. The UTC would put together templates, basically what we do anyway manually for one-to-one. But in this case, we put together a template that's mapped to the XBRL cloud. By putting the information in place, we can then turn around, download all the data that's already been validated into the spreadsheet instantly, and I'm sure most of you have seen that. I literally call it magic. It's absolutely amazing how it just populates like that, and with all the data there. Now what you have at that point is you've effectively changed that analysts that we have at the commission from that clerical position that they do 1/3 of the time to basically a 90% analyst in which he's being paid for. And he or she can, they're going to be happier in the first place because they're not inputting data and trying to find out what the matter is. So that system is put in. Second of all, that template is reusable. So next year or the next quarter when they use it, it comes right back around, they can hit the button and it downloads. Very clean, very efficient, and with high productivity and a high standard of quality.
As the industry goes through accounting changes and updates, the model would also require you the flexibility to go in and modify the taxonomy to make sure that you can keep up with the industry trends. So,
and that's another advantage. Of course, things change. New concepts come on board. Green power was one of those. A lot of things had to be created for that. Well, the taxonomy is flexible enough that we're not locked into it. So as accounts get changed or removed, like extraordinary expense was moved, the taxonomy itself can be changed and with no real impact on anybody.
What we're talking about here with UTC is a UTC taxonomy project. However, the data cloud that we're delivering here, and we didn't give you a live demo here on stage because that never goes the way you expect it, but you can see a live demo at the R. Donnelly booth, and we can walk you through all of the steps that we just presented, 1 through 4, like we did with Danny. What we would like to say is that the data cloud is also available for the Data Act. And so it's taxonomy agnostic. The data cloud allows you to load the data in the file and manage that data, whatever taxonomy you want. That can be an XBRL data conversion. It can be an XML data conversion. Danny and I spoke about this as well. The template in Excel might be convenient to collect 600 to 500 to maybe 1,000 facts, but it might not be effective if you're pumping tens of thousands of lines of data into a transformation of that data for reporting. And so the cloud model allows you to collect data from CSV files, JSON files, converts those files into an XML format, and then publishes those files out for review, in this case in an Excel template, but also for export to any kind of database system. So it provides a lot of flexibility for you to move forward with this. Danny, can you talk a little bit about the timeline from our initial proof of concept that you presented to your senior team to the time where you're actually seeing results?
Yeah, from the time that I went ahead, had to get approval from our management they approved the concept to go forward on a pilot project. Probably within a 5-month period, we were already finishing up. We have already gone through the mapping, the conversions, bringing up stuff to the cloud, and working on final templates on the other side. So it was a very fast, concise process. Now, what I think is one of the geniuses of our approach is, instead of looking at the uniform system of accounts or all the accounting numbers, saying, okay, how do we build a taxonomy to do this? What we start looking at is a report. We're saying, okay, what do we need? Well, what we need is in the report. Obviously, it's on its own. So by going through the report, the taxonomy itself starts building. And if there's, after we're done with the report, if there happens to be any type of account that has not been used, well, I guess it's kind of moot. It really doesn't matter. We're not using it. However, if a further report, and we get lots of reports, if another report comes in that uses that, then we can easily put it back into the taxonomy or put it into the taxonomy. But we're only recognizing accounts that we're actually using. And I think it made it quite efficient, and we moved forward, and we were able to validate it quite quickly also.
Danny, when you look at the sales for resale slide here, what do you see as far as flexibility and data intelligence?
Yeah, first of all is, once again, when you see this form blank and then you hit the button and it populates, it's great. And then just as an analyst, I can immediately see that the megawatt hours sold for the short-term firm is different from the revenue accumulated, which means there's a subsidy. That means nothing to you, but an analyst can see it right away, and it's quick. You look under the normal scenario, an analyst would have had to sit down, start building this, build the charts before they got even to this point. This chart is a template now. And so not only can this be used next year and the following year, but it can also, we can change the numbers here to be something else, some other relationship, and change the titles, and the model will still work because it's reaching up and it's grabbing those numbers because the numbers have all been tagged. And they're, once again, we know they're accurate, we know they're valid, so we can just relax and really do the analysis part of it. And another, notice this is actually using, part of it is using non-financial numbers. It's actually comparing megawatt hours to revenues. So we're also handling the non-financial aspects of things.
In the engagement with our technical team and your team, were you able to write specific UTC rules? Yeah,
we were. And I think it's exciting as we go along, as it grows. But yeah, there are certain constraints that we want to look at. Obviously, one would be, if no megawatts are generated from a certain generator, then you can't have megawatts sold from that generator. Simple stuff like that, but that's the type of stuff that you catch errors in. And I think as we move forward, we'll be able to do some internal rules that might show variances if from one year to another a certain item changes by, let's say, 20%, there would be a internal flag that would indicate to us that that might be something for us to audit. May a change in revenue would flag us also. So yeah, those are very powerful.
Good. As we look at the financial benchmarks, can you walk us through how your team would use this information?
Yeah, now this is probably just a standard dashboard. So the team, as the annual report is filed, a new row would show up. And what the analyst is doing is obviously looking for changes in trends or continuing trends. What I found really interesting in this, and these are actual numbers, so it stands on its own, From, you look at revenue, change in revenue, well, the company has actually had a decrease in revenue. I assume they're still recovering from the Great Recession, but it appears to be continuing. I'm not sure rate increase is needed, but it's a flag. But at the same time, right next to it, you have operating expenses. Initially, there was a fairly large cut in expenses decrease, which I assume they're offsetting the decrease in revenues. But this all gives you great information that's calculated from that elementary data that's coming in from those annual reports. And once again, this report, as you can see, this one is a time series. So this report will be used year after year, and the analyst can sit and just hit the button, it populates right away, and then they can spend their time trying to figure out why there was a decrease in revenue, or whatever factor they see in here, instead of spending time building an entire spreadsheet. And like I said, I would even say on a spreadsheet like this, they would be spending half their time building the spreadsheet. Now they spend 90% of their time analyzing.
Yeah, we heard from the representative from Morningstar on one of the earlier panels where they could get access to the SEC's XBRL data, but they don't, because they don't trust the data. However, they do access the data in Taiwan because they trust the XBRL data. They know it's correct, complete, and valid upon entry. So if the data set that you're delivering to the market is the highest quality that you can make upon collection, you'll find people that will start using that data. And so can you talk a little bit about your vision for the UTC and the other 50 states that do these type of reports?
My philosophy, my overall philosophy is right now, to a large extent, most commissions actually have hindsight regulation instead of oversight regulation because of that delay in data. Something happens, the data finally gets filed, the analyst finally gets to it, they finally look at it, and now they react. When you have data that's interactive and it comes online instantly and you have these dashboards, the regulator can react right away. And like I said, now it comes oversight regulation. My vision is that since we have a uniform system of accounts that covers all the states, and FERC also, of course, if all states used XBRL in the same format, using the same taxonomy, which makes absolute sense, I could reach out to other states' databases when I'm comparing my energy company. What is my energy company's salaries and bonuses per revenue compared to the rest of the United States or to certain regions? I could do that at a click of a button. That's strong. Right now, I have to go into hard-coded databases, pull out the data, put it into a spreadsheet. This would be, I think, astronomical advance to do that.
So we presented the UTC or Donnelley Data Cloud validation solution, and we wanted to talk a little bit about how we got to create the UTC taxonomy, which was loaded into the data cloud. Danny, can you talk about the steps 1, 2, and 3 here?
Sure.
That you worked on with our team?
Yeah, what we did with direction from the team, I went into the FERC 1 report, selected a number of pages, of course, income statement pages, balance sheet pages, long-term assets, liabilities, those critical pages. Then we spent time actually mapping them out. Each account, each line we would look at and we would determine what that line was, what kind of account, what kind of balance should it have. Is it a total account or is it absolute? Is it in the instant or is it duration? So we just kind of went through, and quite frankly, that was probably one of the more tedious part of the project, because after a while you start losing your focus. But once we had those data, we were able, then we sent it to R.R. Donnelley, in which their technicians converted it very quickly into a taxonomy. And like I said many times, coming back saying, well, this is showing as a negative, I think it should be a positive, good errors, clean them up, and within a fairly short amount of time, we have built a taxonomy built on all those pages, like I said, 600 data points, based on 2 years worth of data of this company in Vista.
Thank you. From there, we moved on to include some business rules.
Correct.
So once you have your data dictionary based on 500 or 600 concepts, which is just the beginning of the data, you then go into build out your business rules you apply on top of that, right?
Right. And we have, of course, the simple business rules that assets must equal equity plus liabilities, but we also had other sub calculations that had to add up in a certain way, or if a number appeared one place, there had to be a number somewhere else. So those type of rules.
Okay. And then the final step there is to load the taxonomy into the data cloud and use the template that now reflects the context of the data that you're collecting. So these templates are created and posted in the data cloud, and that gets us to where we started our presentation. The templates are simply downloaded from the data cloud, completed on a local desktop, uploaded to the cloud, validated on the fly, directed to any error in that file within the line that the error is found, so you don't have to look for the error. You can go right to it, fix it, and have that file accepted, at which point Danny's team is then ready to start the data analysis for that project.
And I might mention, too, I truly know nothing about programming XBRL. I've looked at it, poked at it, but so this is all done. It was on Excel, and it was very easy for me to do and to understand. So I wasn't doing any programming. I was my subject matter expert. I was explaining what those accounts were, what we did with them, and the other subject matter experts of XBRL are the ones that spent their time.
From our experience deploying these structured data solutions on a global basis, working with the regulators like the FDIC and the Bank of France, they have teams that bring in all the stakeholders. So you have your domain expert for the regulator knowing exactly what needs to be collected because they have to review the reports, and that's what's driving the decision on the data, as you described.
Correct.
And then from the standpoint of the other stakeholders, the technology is out there to collect the data and convert the data or transform the data into a data standard. What we're stressing here is the need to build in the validation to allow you to collect not just data, but the quality data needed for business analytics so that people can start using that data once it's completed. Lastly, here's just the process that we worked with Danny to come up with this pilot. Danny, can you talk a little bit about what happens next from UTC's standpoint? Since
this is a pilot, I think a successful pilot, I think it looks really nice. One of the principles that our state has right now, and is pushing, the governor is pushing especially, is the lean management principle. And the lean management itself says the goals are reducing cost, eliminating waste, increasing productivity, while maintaining high quality. Well, that is the definition of what we just did. So I will be going back to the commissioners and executive director and proposing that we go ahead and start a full project on converting the FERC 1 report into an XBRL formatted system. And what comes along with that is now we bring in the stakeholders. We bring in, of course, the electric companies, which will be actively involved. And I have talked to some of the electric companies about this, and the ones that understand it are excited. The ones that don't understand it are cautiously optimistic because I sell it in that way, which they should be, because I think it is a benefit to them. And I tell them, I truly also believe this for ourselves. There's no doubt this is the future. You fast forward 10 years, well, all data is going to be interactive on a cloud. Now the question is, who takes the first step forward? Well, let's go ahead, let's take that first step forward will be my sell. So with the companies being involved, I also would allow, or at least invite, stakeholders to be allowed, because that's another component. That's the other side, which makes it exciting as far as being a government agency. The idea of the cloud, even though it can be protected for confidential information and restricted, it's also highly transparent to those that can get in. So if there is a stakeholder that gets party status to some hearing or is allowed to go in, they also can pull down the data efficiently, cleanly, and accurately so that they are not wasting time, and they're also not calculating wrong numbers because they got the wrong information.
Thank you. We just have a couple of minutes for questions if anyone has a question in the audience.
I actually do. Hello, I'm Hudson Hollister. I'm the Executive Director of the Data Transparency Coalition.
Thank you for bringing us together, Hudson.
I'm eager to lay out how, for utilities reporting, the state and federal picture fit together. I'm convinced that if we have a state-level use case to point to, then the federal reporting will follow, and we could wind up with a whole ecosystem of utilities reporting that unites the regime of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and all of the state counterparts of which you represent one. How might that happen over the next 5 years? What are we going to do?
Well, what is convenient at this point is the FERC has opened up a rulemaking to look at XML-based structuring of their current database. They currently use FoxPro, which we all know is pretty much of a dead issue. So
what is FoxPro?
Good old FoxPro. So I am hoping, and I'm in contact with the FERC and with the people that are involved in it. I'm hoping that they will look over the fence and see what Washington State is doing and be excited about what we're doing and see how easily we're doing it, and actually maybe just jump on board. And I agree with you. My ideal is that uniform system. There's no reason why all the states, including the federal portion, should not be on the same page, and everybody can hit a button and get the information they need.
Questions? Great. I'll go ahead and thank you for your innovation and leadership in this area. We're excited about the pilot, and to Hudson's point, let's see what we can do to move this on. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.